Hi, are you thinking about buying or selling real estate here in Texas, whether it be a home, land, ranch, condo, investment property? If so, it's really important that you understand how Texas real estate brokerage services work. And by law, I am required to make sure that my prospective buyers and sellers understand. So, first, I guess I should introduce myself real quick because I'm wanting to get this video done quickly, but my name is Sandra Meyer. I've been in real estate for over 15 years. I am licensed in both Colorado and Texas. This video is specific to Texas. Okay, so here in Texas we have two types of licensees. We have brokers and we have sales agents. The broker is in charge and typically runs the office and sponsors the sales agents. Sales agents have to be sponsored by a broker. The brokers also have a little bit of extra education more often than not. Okay, sales agents can be a brand new licensee, or they can be in business for 15 years or so like myself, or they could even have been in business for 20 or 30 years. But the thing to remember is that sales agents are sponsored by brokers. The real estate transaction is in the broker's name. Okay, that said, the second thing that you need to know is in Texas is a real estate licensee is going to be involved in a transaction in one of four capacities. They will either be an agent for the seller, an agent for the buyer, they're going to be a sub-agent, which means that they're not working as the buyer's agent, so by default they're a seller's agent. Sub-agents are very rare, so that's all I'm going to talk about it. Or the fourth way is that the real estate licensee can be in an intermediary status. Okay, so seller's agents and buyer's agents are very similar. In both cases, the agent is advocating for their client. They still have to share material information with everybody, and you can't be breaking the law, but they are the seller's agent is an advocate for the seller, the buyer's agent is an advocate for the buyer. Now, sometimes you might find yourself in being asked if you want to be involved in a transaction that is considered an intermediary status. In that is you are potentially giving up your advocate that you had with your agent. And so it has to be in writing. Okay, there's two ways of intermediary status can come about. One is if a seller's agent and the listing agent both work for the same company, like Keller Williams in my case. In that instance, if the buyer's agent, this client wants to put in an offer on the seller's agent's listing or home, you have to get permission in writing, and the broker that sponsors the two will designate, okay, this person is going to be working with the buyer, this person's going to be working with the seller, and they can still be advocating, but they cannot be talking to each other and sharing confidential information. Okay, that's one way. The other way, which is becoming more and more less common because agents are terrified of getting sued, is when the listing agent also happens to be representing the buyer. Okay, in that case, let's say I'm the listing agent, I have just listed an amazing new horse property, and I have this buyer that I've been working as their buyer's agent with that has been looking for this type of property for a year. And so I may say, okay, both people want to keep working with me, so I would say, okay, well, I could work as an intermediary, but I have to get it approved in writing. And if I go into intermediary status, I have to treat all parties honestly and fairly, and I cannot be an advocate for either the buyer or the seller. Especially, I cannot tell the buyer if I know the seller's willing to come down on their asking price. I cannot tell the seller if I know the buyer is able to pay more or is willing to pay or is willing to pay more or can pay more. I can only share material information, say like property condition, things required by law. And again, that has to be in writing and approved. You don't accidentally find yourself in intermediary status. Okay, there are also, so the third point I want to make is that in Texas, there are also minimum duties that a agent is required to provide to their client. A client is somebody that you've agreed to work with. the client's interest has to be put above all others to include self. You have to inform your client if there's any material information about the property or the transaction that's received by the broker. You have to be willing to answer the client's questions. You have to be present any offers or counter offers. Actually, you don't have to be willing to answer client questions. You have to answer client questions. And lastly, you also have to treat all parties to the real estate transaction honestly and fairly. In other words, a seller's agent just cannot put a property in the MLS and say, oh, okay, that's all I'm doing. Okay, well, this has already gotten a little bit longer than I wanted, so if you have any questions, please feel free to put a comment in or call me, text me, just get in touch with me.